Hey guys, Chaotic Camera here with another Hell Loose news update video talking about the upcoming Update 19 that's supposed to come out tomorrow, December 3rd, 2025. Talking about the new map Smolensk, SPAs and artillery updates, and just other little changes with this update to the game, as we're getting a whole new map and a big change to artillery as we know it. Now, in the background, I've got Team 17's video that they have as a trailer. I'll leave a link down below in the description so you can hear the commentary if you'd like, but that'll just be playing in the background while I throw up some photos. But talking about the map. So, Smolensk, for anyone living under a rock, this has been the new Eastern Front urban map that the devs talked to us about almost a year ago, saying that they'd be bringing to the game soon, and now it's coming to fruition. The whole thing is supposed to be the biggest urban map that Team 17 have developed, and it is with the goal of creating a dense urban battlefield that feels authentic and intense. It'll feature a wide range of distinct areas, including industrial zones, tight urban streets, and riverside positions. They also have worked on making a night mode for the illumination of the fire effects in the city, as they talked about in the video. Most of the city during the battle itself, during the second battle of Smolensk, was destroyed, and they're trying to reflect that in game. And at least from the photos, videos, and just reviews I've seen, it looks to be a good map on paper. Obviously, we got to see how the map actually runs. And does it crash, everything like that. So that'll be to be determined hopefully tomorrow. And hopefully this map runs good, because it looks good. It looks very good. Another urban map in Hell Loose is always something to be fond of, just because we don't have a lot of them in-game. And Stalingrad is still a laggy mess, if I'm being completely honest. Now, going off their map rationale, after listening to the community, the brief for the Eastern Front was to find something for urban combat, and they researched into Smolensk. As they say here, it's the largest and densest urban environment in any Hell Loose map, an emphasis on vertical fighting with triple-story buildings that can be entered with multiple routes that create literal combat occurring above and below players. River crossings, where you can cross the whole river, very much like Driel, but it is risky. So you'll be going through slow, but there is bridges, of course. Multiple hero buildings, including tram depot, train station, and the Citadel with its medieval walls. And dramatic nighttime lighting where burning buildings illuminate the skyline and can be seen across the city, which I think will also be really cool. The dense urban layout enables memorable gameplay moments throughout the city, from room-to-room assaults through shattered buildings, flanking armored vehicles through a maze of alleys and doorways. And just so you guys can see what the map looks like for those who haven't played it or don't have a PC like me, here is a tac map of the objectives. I know they're not labeled. It's the only one I could get my hands on that was of decent quality. But I will at least go through the objectives now, since I did not do this with Stalingrad changes, and I kind of feel bad for it. So here's a rundown of all the objectives and at least a quick photo of all of them for what we've been given. Now, be forewarned, I'm probably going to butcher some of these, so I apologize now, but I'm going to give them a shot anyway. First, we have the Panzer loading station, the tram depot, Smolensk outskirts, Smolensk Hauptbahnhof or railway station, the lumber yard, the Dnieper West crossing, Piatnitsky overpass, Zelyabova square, 84th Battalion bridge, Zedny Provi district, Moskovskaya street, that one I'm so sorry, Smolensk Citadel, rail yard storage, apartment block, and bombarded riverfront. In terms of the atmosphere they were going for, they were trying to add some upgrades to it. And I can already hear the moaning now of, well, shouldn't they be focusing on making sure it actually runs? And you are right, especially with how the Stalingrad update came out, where it really didn't feel like it fixed much. So, like I said, you know me, cautious optimism until proven otherwise. But I'm always going to be like that. And they have tried to do some little fire effects to try and see how you can see it from farther away, even if you're not close to it, and to light up the whole skylight with some ambient fog volume, stuff like that. If you want to see more about just Smolensk and the historical stuff and what Team 17 pulled from, Das Altberg has a cool little video. I'll leave a link down below in the description. It is actually a really cool video. But moving on to the second half of this update, the new self-propelled artillery, or assault guns, is what I'm going to call it because it's really what they are, SPAs. So this is where they're trying to change the artillery meta, as the whole sitting and guarding artillery as recon is going to be gone. So they're bringing the self-propelled guns, or assault guns, in the form for all factions, and they're making it so artillery isn't as, we'll say, available now. Now, they have also said that everything is somewhat subject to change, and they will try to adjust accordingly for the new assault guns. But let's at least go through the list of what they have, since the full list for all the factions has been released. For the Russians, you have the KV-2. For the Americans, you have the M4A3-105 Sherman. For the Germans, you have the Brumbar. For the British 8th Army faction, you have the Churchill AVRE. For the German DAC faction, you have the Panzer III Offs N. And for the British 8th Army, you have the Bishop self-propelled 25-pounder. And unlike all the other armor, these can only be used by the new artillery squad, which we'll get to. And they cost munitions instead of fuel to spawn in. Now, I'm going to be honest here, I don't really like that. But to save time and to get you what you know, I'm not going to dive into that. Moving on, though. Now, they will obviously have dual purpose. They can indirectly fire or directly fire, just depending on the situation you find yourself in. They can be used at range, essentially, what that means, or you can use them more up close and personal at higher risks. And since these howitzer-based guns have far more drop-off compared to just regular tank shells, aiming is measured by combining the barrel elevation, which is the yellow number, and the terrain elevation, the red number. And while they are not suited for direct engagements, they can do them, and they have some upside if you can aim the shots. So these assault guns will also have armor-piercing rounds, and they have very high armor penetration and high damage values at 950, which is capable of destroying medium tanks and below in one shot. As long as you can hit the target, you can one-shot mediums and below, which I got nothing. You know what? We're just going to keep moving on. On the flip side as well, their HE rounds will have a larger explosion radius than any other weapon, which is 31 meters, and will have light armor penetration on the explosion, allowing them to do very high damage to lightly armored vehicles and damage tank treads near the blast. That one I'm fine with, at least compared to the armor-piercing bits. But again, keeping it short and simple as much as I can, continuing to move on. And the last main thing with the assault guns, at least in terms of the damage they can do, is their main gun is capable of destroying any player-built constructions, with the exception of garrisons due to balance concerns, which means they're keeping it very similar to artillery, but making it stronger than regular artillery, which means they can destroy barricades, and it doesn't say a specific level. We will probably find that out upon further testing, if it goes up to all levels of construction, or if it goes to just like level 1 or level 2. So we'll see. Now, devs have at least understand that not everything's going to be perfect, but they're at least admitting that. And they are going to use the information they get from the update to try and make more individual adjustments for the vehicles themselves. Such as, for playtesting, it was determined that too many vehicles were capable of destroying fortifications, risking making gameplay unfun for engineers. As such, the ability to destroy middle-tier fortifications has been removed from the heavy tank, which means engineers are getting, that's a slight buff, but also, I guess, debuff. It's just being swapped to artillery now. And not all units have been created for the role that were historically made for the game, which is something I talked about in my video when I talked about what vehicles it could bring, which I was actually kind of right, but also kind of wrong. For instance, they talk about the Churchill AVRE, where its real-life firing range was really about 100 meters, and for this game, it's going to probably be more like 500 or 600 meters, depending on how they've done the ranges for the guns themselves. And they were decided not to include particular vehicles for several technical and design reasonings, concerning that an open-top vehicle would be too easy for recon squads to kill, which means you'd be basically in the same loop as you were for the regular artillery, which I'll actually give them credit for that, because I thought they'd bring actual just artillery, like priests, sextons, stuff like that, and make like a covered top or something like that, so that recons couldn't just run up and kill them. You had to kill them with like a recon tank or some sort of vehicle or rockets. And with static artillery already being present as well, the goal to introduce vehicles that has brought something new to the game that can be used alongside the old artillery, which we'll get to some of the things with the artillery in just a moment. So I do appreciate that they are at least looking at different ways to play, and they're trying to make sure they don't get stuck in the same loop that they just tried to escape. So there's that. And they also did talk about, while some details of the self-propelled guns are different, such as like the movement, armor, turn radius, etc., many of the core elements like damage and firing ranges are currently the same due to the 6 vehicles of just being new in general. Simultaneously, they have been given mechanically the same characteristics for balance reasons. So their damage is going to be the same regardless of what vehicle you use, but there's going to be just certain little principles, like say the Brumbar, where it's hull locked. You gotta move the whole hull to actually move the gun, essentially, compared to other tanks or assault guns in this case that have turrets. So there's that. They also say, rest assured, at post update 19, once feedback has been collected about the current level of balance and usage, each unit will receive more unique elements that will represent their better real-life counterparts. Using the previously mentioned AVRE as an example, one potential option that is being considered is greatly reducing its firing range while having its explosion radius increased to compensate, which I think would be really cool to add some asymmetrical stuff more in the game. The way you can see crews actually get up close and personal, but again, it's something we'll look at for the future. Now, to access the squad itself, it's going to be like you're joining a infantry, armor, or recon. It's going to have its own category, and like recon, there's only 2 squads that you can form. And the way it is here is you cannot use it on skirmish mode or as the attacking side on offense, which I do think is a little crabby, because I think that would be really cool to have assault guns on offensive as the attacking team, because they would have that on offensive, but maybe again, changes might happen. Anyway. And the way they've also done this is with the 3 classes or roles that you can pick. The Observer, which is the officer, basically the one spotting for you, and should have an OP or outpost to spawn on. A Artillery Engineer, the guy with a blowtorch and has a wrench, capable of building several little buildings and stuff like that. And then you have the Artillery Support, which is like the support player for the infantry, has a support box or supply box to build the howitzer itself at the HQ, and it can rebuild it once it's destroyed after a certain cooldown, which we'll get to. Now, the static artillery changes. So they have taken the guns and nerfed them, but they're still there. Now, firstly, you can only have 1 static artillery at any time. You can't have 3 guns anymore. And you need to build them using supplies. This is where the support player and the artillery squad kind of comes into play. That, or if you're trying to do it alone, maybe supplies from the commander if they're generous. And you need 50 supplies to build it. Secondly, the static gun can now be destroyed or dismantled, and once it's destroyed, then a cooldown of 5 minutes begins. Now, the 5 minutes is up for debate. It is going to be looked at and potentially tweaked. But as of right now, 5 minutes after the gun is destroyed can the gun be rebuilt, which means you can silence artillery for up to 5 minutes. And to encourage teamwork and cooperation, the ability for the artillery loader to swap seats while reloading has been disabled, and the turning radius of the gunner seat has been slightly reduced, giving the loader more responsibility for aiming the weapon. So, assuming essentially that the loader actually needs to help you aim, so if you're running a 2-man artillery, the loader and gun turner will have more of a play in essentially aiming the howitzer. And right now, the team can at max have 2 squads, 1 on the static artillery and 1 self-propelled artillery or assault gun, or both squads can run assault guns or SPAs. Another change with the static howitzers at the HQ is that they will have limited ammunition, which means the commander actually has a say in the amount of ammo being fired, which is kind of a yes and no kind of good thing. Yes, it's good because now the commander can actually control how much munitions is going off and being used, or not so good as if you've got a useless commander, now you have no way to fire ordnance because they're just not going to give you ammunition. This video is getting a little long, so let's get into some rapid fire. Talking about some of the armor changes that they're also trying to bring for Update 19. So light, medium, and heavy tanks have been rebalanced to match their intended speeds, since there was issues arising that they were reaching higher than intended top speeds. T-34 was also somewhat fixed with its stability and responsiveness at higher speeds. Recon tanks have been buffed with slight increases to health, damage, output, top speed, turret rotation, and elevation rates. Half-tracks, trucks, and jeeps, top speeds have also been increased with their health values adjusted to create more consistent balance across all vehicles. Structures and equipment balance. For the ammo depot for the technician class, it now reloads up to 20 shells and belts for your tank, meaning you can refill more effectively on the battlefield. Crewman loadout. For the mechanic, you now have, on top of your blowtorch, you have the supply crate, which means you can help your technician build stuff in the field. For AT soldiers, this goes back to infantry. For rocket launcher soldiers, you now have 3 rockets, allowing people to be more flexible with dealing with armored targets. And for those who may be worried that that basically makes the armor stuff back to normal, like for heavies that take 4 hits and mediums that take 3, I'd say not, just because of how long it takes to fire those rockets unless you are a British rocket soldier. For the vast majority of maps, though, with the US, Russian, and Germans, the rocket launcher, it's going to take a while, and if a semi-competent crew realizes they're getting hit, they're going to swing around and probably kill you before you even get that second rocket off. So I think that's actually good, and it allows you to be more flexible for, say, like taking out garrisons, or just at least makes it to where if you whiff a shot, it's not as punishing. For some of you weapon enthusiasts that have been asking us for a long time, and you finally get the BAR and FG42 finally have bipods. Moving on to the UI updates, KIA screen can now be adjusted so you can actually see what you want to see on the kill in action screen, so it's not just a bunch of words. You can adjust it in the options under the gameplay section. As well, there's also some DLC with the Smolensk Corps, some German uniforms, Operation Suvorov units, standalone DLC, Veterans Smolensk Offensive. There's also some free community DLC as a way, since a lot of people were not happy with Update 18, this is their way to try to maybe have a little bit of good faith. But there is that. There's also some more tank skins for the Russians and British for their medium tanks, as well as some little general bug fixes that I'll just post a picture about here, since this video is already getting way too long. But I hope you got something from this massive update. I think there's some good, but again, I've got some cautious optimism here. Leave your comments, bitches, gripes, whatever you got in the comment section. I'll try to get to them, provide they're respectful. But as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.